Welcome to Comics League Dark. I'm your host, Jared. I'm here with Jay Heat. What's up, brother? Yeah, there you go. And he's muted. And
Flame on! How's everybody doing tonight?
doing pretty well. And we are here with Ishiro and Kat from the authors of Boobs of Steel. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this.
Now, I will say again, I'm going to say it again. That is the greatest name for a book I have ever seen. That is awesome. So before
we wanted something eye-catching.
Yeah. That is eye-catching. That is eye-catching. So before we get started, normally what I do when I have new people in the show is ask them a very simple question. What got you guys into comics?
Oh my, do you want the short version or the long version?
Well, the short version is I had hit age 27, 28 thereabouts and realized, you know what? I'd written a lot of stuff in journalism as a music journalist. I had done a number of things that I had wanted to do in life. The one thing I hadn't done was my true goal, which is get my own stories published. I was tired of talking about other people's art. And I went to Kat one day and I said, I'm going to get published in comics. Do you want to come with me?
And I was in art school, so I said yes.
And boy, did you not know what that entailed.
No.
Match made in heaven, I always say. Match made in heaven. So tell us about Boobs of Steel, the inception, what it's about, and like the whole story. Let's go.
Well, let's get to the title since you said it's the best title ever.
It is. It is.
The title has haunted me because for quite a while, for the first month, it got really hard to get anyone to review it because they thought it was something else other than what it is.
I see.
They thought it was just a titty book.
Yeah.
And I struggled over the cover. And to be honest, I didn't choose that title.
Really?
No, somebody else with Boobs of Steel said, no, you gotta name it Boobs of Steel.
We were, spitballing different titles, and that came, I'm like, well, what is this about? And he said, well, it's about Boobs of Steel. I'm like, well, that's perfect.
And I'm like, are you sure? Is it? Yes.
Well, let's say we're in the world of clickbaity. Yep. I hate to say it, but we're in the world where, it's not enough to be eye-catching. You have to practically punch your audience in the face in order to get their attention because there's just so many shiny things out there to look at. And yes, there are plenty of things involving boobs to look at too. So you have to grab your audience and say, look at this.
Well, yeah.
And what is the book about? Well, the book is about a number of things. It all started when we realized boobs were under attack. How were boobs under attack?
They were under attack savagely.
Yes.
Actually, I say that jokingly, but no, it's very true. In as an example of 2016, 2017 or so, this lovely lady here on the cover, Wonder Woman,
2016,
was named by the UN as an ambassador for women and women's rights.
I remember that.
And then immediately had that title stripped because of these.
It was the first complaint on the list from feminists. Her boobs are too big. Her boobs are unrealistic. So apparently we're supposed to have, body positivity, unless you've got boobs.
Now, I've had people come back at me when I've promoted this, and they're saying, well, she's a fictional character. She shouldn't be an ambassador. To this day, the Angry Birds are still an ambassador.
I was like, wait a second here.
So, your argument is invalid.
Mm-hmm.
But really, we had noticed around 2008, 2009, as more and more newcomers came to the comic book hobby, actually it coincided with Big Bang Theory. We started getting more and more outsiders coming and checking out comics, except they didn't really seem to be coming for the comics. They didn't like the comics. and immediately wanted everything changed. And what was at the top of their list? They didn't like the busty women.
Now, I just want to interject right quick, and I wanted the madam's perspective specifically. I just noticed a huge decline the past 6-7 years, not only in comics in general, but that's a conversation in of itself, but specifically for female characters. It could be in terms of character designs, writing, and how does that have affected you as you two got in the industry?
Well, for my perspective, they've been getting rid of the whole reason why I got into comics in the first place. You know, I wanted, beautiful, larger than life women that I could read about, specifically, and this actually does pertain to Boobs of Steel, specifically Power Girl is what got me into reading comics.
Yeah.
And I loved Jeff Johns's Power Girl. I loved how, not only how tough she was, but also I loved the fact that she was unaware of herself and that she always felt like she was the odd man out, that she didn't belong, because that definitely spoke to me. Oh, don't go away. Come back on the screen.
I'm right here. I just had to check something.
Come on, Jay Heat.
But no, that portrayal of Kara really spoke to me. The fact that she was tough and no nonsense, but at the same time, she was awkward around people. She was awkward in society. She didn't really know her skin. And I thought that was a wonderful take on the character. And I actually wrote an essay on how absolutely pissed I was in 2009 with Amanda Connor and Palmiotti's portrayal of her, where she suddenly became kind of this klutzy, not ditz, but
she feminist, but also kind of a dingbat.
Yeah, and then later they made her Harley Quinn's babysitter. What the hell? And basically what it came down to was, even though, Connor did originally bring something unique to the character, and initially I liked what she did. I even liked the fact that she exaggerated the boob window. I thought, yeah, own it. This is something that, has always been a sore spot with people about this character. This has always been something that people have hated about the character, is the fact that she has been, more than, in the chestal area. And, yes, own it. That's great. That's wonderful. No, they made it basically the same reason why Faith is fat. And I can go on a rant about my views on Faith. That character pisses me off so much. Not the character herself, but what they've done with her. But Faith is not the topic today. What I'm talking about is Power Girl. And suddenly now, the fact that she's got huge boobs is a spot for comedy. It's a spot to make fun of her, to have her clothes rip off because she hits the jet stream when she flies, to suddenly things get, dead birds get caught in her cleavage.
The sheer amount of page after page after page of turning her into a boob joke.
Yeah, and it's like, there's more to this character than her fucking chest. But you know what? That's the big problem, is that I'm gonna point fingers at it. I'm gonna say feminists and the left and a lot of people out there, and I'm saying specifically, unfortunately, a lot of female creators, they themselves have self-esteem issues, and so they're going to go after characters like Power Girl. And I can speak from experience, because Ishii and I exhibited at San Diego Comic-Con one year, and people first were like, oh honey, you're better than being the booth girl. And when I'm like, I'm not the booth girl, I'm the artist. This was when we were exhibiting our book, Utopians. And the second they found out I was talent, they then said, oh, well, honey, you need us to represent you. You need us to support you and to protect you from the men of this industry. And I'm like, God, I don't need you. I'm doing fine by myself. I don't need you to protect me from anybody. And the second I said, I don't need you, they instantly told me that I needed to chop my off in order to succeed in comics.
No, to be taken seriously.
Yeah, taken seriously and to succeed. Basically, that either I needed to join their little group or I needed to remove what made me feminine in order to succeed. And it's like
it's been an ongoing war on femininity in our stories, not just comics, but movies, animation, science fiction, you name it. You cannot have a feminine woman anymore.
Well,
oh no, 100%. It's like the thing I see plenty of times in movies where like the critique in the at the trailer stage, or at the trailer stage, the critique is the woman's too attractive, and I'm like, that's the point.
And one of the things was, I remember from that essay that you wrote, you had said one of the things that you really liked about Power Girl is growing up, any woman who had your chest size was either an idiot, portrayed as an idiot, or a slut, or a dingbat, or a bimbo, and that here it is in the DCU. Here's this one character who is the awkward tomboy with big breasts, and she gets to be the hero.
Yeah.
And what happens? Palmiotti and Connor come along and turn her into a boob joke.
Or it's like,
I mean, you were pissed for months.
I still am, honestly.
Or it's like now they gave her an entirely new costume and got rid of the boob window. It's like she's wearing like a jacket now, and I'm like,
most of the super family are wearing jackets, and at least from what I've seen, but this is what I researched online. I am heavily convinced the main reason they changed Karen's name to Paige is because of the Karen meme, and they didn't want her to be synonymous with that. But hey, that's just my opinion.
You know, the thing is that's kind of stupid about that is at least while Jeff Johns was writing her in Justice Society,
I remember,
she didn't answer to the name Karen.
No.
She answered to the name Power Girl.
She was Power Girl, or she was also Kara.
No, she did not answer to Karen because that was the identity that had been given to her. And she constantly was struggling with this. That's fake. That's not who I am. Why do I care?
By the way, we will be picking up the new Power Girl issue tomorrow. And yeah, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we do a segment called Adventures in Awful on our channel where I read things and critique it. Well, I'm going to leave it there because that's not the subject of today.
I will be.
Does that include Marvel titles?
Yes, it does. In fact, I have done several Marvel titles. Oh my God.
Did a Nick from the Phoenix Press. We made him read Sin's Past live on stream.
I'm sorry.
I did not condone this.
He retched. He literally dry heaved when he got to the scene.
Oh.
So, just out of curiosity, now that you've read some of the book, what's your take?
Well, a lot of the stuff that you bring up there, I didn't know. Like, I didn't know that Greg Rucka got an artist canceled because of the way he draws Wonder Woman. And I'm like, okay, I like some of Greg's stuff, but to around that time, and I remember it, he got really, really, really preachy with his work, and this 100% explains it. And I'm like, okay, dude, I get it. I get that you want to adhere to some some way of thinking,
specific audience,
but you're writing a character that is literally supposed to be the statuesque goddess. She's supposed to look this way.
As I mentioned, I do an entire chapter on Wonder Woman in the first Boobs of Steel book. And it gets very specific into when Marston created her. He was very specific about her measurements. He said that she had to have a certain figure that communicated hyper-femininity because she was the goddess of feminine virtues.
Even the Perez run has that.
There you go.
And her measurements are supposed to be that of a Vargas girl, if you've ever seen those pinups. And that it was such an integral part to her character that it was even mentioned a few times in the early comic books.
Yeah, specifically stated she has these measurements.
Because in Marston's mind, symbolically, he understood as an archetype, if she is going to be the symbol of feminine power, she needs to look feminine.
Movie theater king. It's Vargas, V as in Victor, Argas. I know it's V as in Victor. Yeah.
Okay.
So Ishii's putting it
Oh,
in.
okay, I see it. I see it.
Once you see his pinups, you'll know it immediately. I mean, they were the ones that were on bombers.
Yeah.
And fighter planes in World War II.
Oh, that's what those are called. Okay, that's what those are called.
And the majority of Vargas's models were actually his wife. So a lot of them were based on his wife, and it was his wife's measurements that Wonder Woman was supposed to emulate.
So they were real measurements. Real women can have it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you will learn all this in my book. But I mean, that's part of the thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The whole the message here with the book is I needed not only to cover the culture war and the fact that they are destroying all of our feminine archetypes, but I felt it was important that the readers understand what we're losing. Give them the history of these characters, why they're important, what they symbolize, what they bring to stories.
Well, the one of the chapters that I really enjoyed and I loved while you were researching it was your the section that you did on Pam Grier.
Oh,
and how she is nearly forgotten as to what she brought to the genre of, action women, badass women.
Well, I, like a lot of people, consider Pam Grier the first modern female action hero on film. Prior to that, we did have action heroines prior to that, but not in the sense of an action movie.
No, a modern day action movie.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that brings me to my next aspect, like, because I hear this term a lot, girl bossing. Like, it's, I feel like you can have women be strong, because Ripley from Alien, perfect example. Honestly, one of my favorite ones. But I feel like, especially now in Hollywood, because I just feel like they're trying to exexaggerate to make them more male-esque. If that
what
makes
do
sense.
they mean when they say girl boss? He's a bitch.
Actually, I'm going to answer that because I hate the term girl boss, because everybody I've ever heard use the term girl boss has either been in a cult-like mentality or a cult-like group, has been in an MLM, otherwise known as a pyramid scheme, aka cult, or is trying to tell you something. The term girl boss is fake. It is buzz terminology to sound important and badass and take charge, and really it's propaganda bullshit. I'm just going to say it right now. Don't ever use the term girl boss. If you yourself think, if you're female and you think that you're a badass, or a badass girl, female, do not use the term girl boss. It is cult mentality brainwashing.
Well, what defines a girl boss, really? An unethical, mean, vicious son of a bitch? I mean,
pretty much, yeah. It's a female who is a boss, and it's like, why not just say I'm the boss? I run my own publishing company. I own my own publishing company, 01 Publishing. I am the boss. I am the owner. I am the editor-in-chief. I am not a girl boss. Why? Because the term doesn't require genderization. I am the owner. Done.
I appreciate that. That was great. But and the thing about it, my issue arises when, like you said, like Jay Heap brought up, you have these badass female characters like Ripley, like Lara Croft, like Wonder Woman, and those characters, and when they're done now in the modern day, their whole purpose is to denigrate the male characters. That's one of the reasons why I can't stand the Captain Marvel movie. Like, that whole thing makes Nick Fury, this badass spy that we followed for like 10 years, an ineffective, like, government stooge. And I'm like, what?
I get what they were going for with Captain Marvel, because in the movie setting, this is before Fury's career really took off. This was like in his early days. But I still
don't give it excuses. The movie's garbage.
Yeah, Jay, come on, stop it. Stop
it. Kelly Sue DeConnick is a hack writer who doesn't know what she's doing, who ruined a perfectly great character.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, any character that needs to denigrate someone else to show how great they are isn't great.
This is a horrible character. Is
Well, yeah, they're not strong. They're weak.
We did a video. What if Brian Michael Bendis never came to DC? And the funny part is,
I knew you were going to bring
you'd
this
be
up.
surprised because if he doesn't come, Kelly Sue DeConnick does not show up at DC and ruin Aquaman. Like all the second and third order effects that come from this one guy not showing up at DC, it was hilarious.
You know, we could add to that list if Warren Ellis had never been born, the entire Portland Mafia would have never gotten into comics and ruined everything.
Yeah.
Thanks, Warren.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Also, what I see being a content creator is that I see a lot of, because a lot of I see a lot of the Twitter discussion around like comic books. And actually CBR brought up this fantastic article that pretty much 99% of the blank loves comics accounts don't read the comics. They just post like random stuff to make up their points. Like, oh, she was always this way. Oh, Superman would never do that. And I'm like, this doesn't line up. And
excessive branding while not really knowing the characters. Say it ain't so.
But on that note, it's like you then got a lot of these people that became writers for these characters. And I always say this, they focus not on what these characters were, just what they wanted them to be.
And I'll add to that. These people have no concept of what it means to be altruistic or heroic.
Nope, they do
Their
not.
characters are always sociopathic. They act like villains.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had a Batman story, and I think I brought this up on the Nick stream, where he's flying over Gotham. There's like looting, and he's like, "Nah, they have insurance. They'll take care of it." And I'm like,
"No."
Yeah.
Batman
that legit
Fortress
happened.
by Jerry Durgan.
And I was like, tell me you don't understand Batman without telling me you don't understand Batman, because I'm pretty sure he has a very extreme point of what crime is.
I've read I have to say this. I've read a lot of bad comics in my time. I even read Sins Past when I was 7.
He read Marvel.
Oh.
It was a dare. I am not proud of it. It was a dare.
It was a dare. Everything's forgiven with a dare.
But if I may continue, apologies if I mispronounced the name, but Jerry Durgan, I gave this man a chance. Okay, he's doing anthology stories for One Bad Day, or One Bad Day when DC did last year. What he did to Mr. Freeze, I will never give this guy a chance again. No,
because he basically made Freeze like a simp for his wife, and someone that was like, I'm just gonna freeze her so she's not going out and being with her friends instead, so I know where she is. And I'm like, you took one of the best episodes of Batman the Animated Series that influenced the comic books and threw that right out the window. What are you doing, brother?
Oh God, no, that's bullshit. No, and with that said about how these people don't know heroes or what's heroic, I'm gonna bring this up. We illustrated a Catwoman story for DC Comics. It was in the Batman Giant Size 80 in 2009. We did not write this story. I stress this. We did not write this story. We just illustrated it. But a problem we had with it was the writer was not making, I know Catwoman rides the line between hero and villain, but there's writing the line and there's outright being villainous. And
I think I remember the story.
The author wanted Catwoman to beat the ever-living shit out of an 80-year-old man who had just lost his wife for no reason.
This is giving me flashbacks to the Gotham War, J-Heat.
Of course, the woman who wrote it was also formerly the branch manager of the National Organization of Women in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So if you don't know what I just referenced, so there's a storyline going on right now. They basically want to make a Bat Family Civil War. So it's Batman versus Catwoman. Her thing is basically eat the rich. And in order to fight crime, we're going to do only like small crime or or something like that. We'll have a ceiling on what crime is, and if you go against that, it's just that way we can control it. The stupid part is that some Bat family members side with her over Batman.
Now,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
This is just how I'm interpreting this, because they are referencing like Zur-En-Arrh from the Silver Age and how he's basically Batman's subconscious and how that's going to play a role in a later storyline. So they want Batman to just take a break, settle, ease up, rest a bit. I get that angle, but even so, a petty lover spat with the city caught in the middle, half burnt to the ground, and enemies on all sides. We had this story that bled into the New 52 10 years ago with Talia al Ghul.
And it was told much better. Plus, this sounds like commentary on, California's rule of, well, if it's less than X amount of money, there won't be any prosecution.
And honestly, and here's the thing, that they also took away some of Bruce's of money, because of course a billionaire can't be a good guy. And I'm like, guys, just make up your own characters. They won't sell. And then we can just go back and reading all the good characters. We get this. You want to be creative. You can't. But just go. Create on Earth BS.
The people currently writing Marvel and DC and making the movies are a bunch of talentless hacks that might as well be replaced by AI, because the AI would do a better job at this point. You could write stories just pulling random sentences out of a hat at this point and get a better story.
Well, Jay Heat and I did.
It's called the New Direction Verse. Be sure to check it out.
As an example, and I bring this up because of your opening montage about the Snyderverse.
Yeah.
And you end it with Wonder Woman, who is also, our cover girl here. Now, I will be perfectly honest. I haven't seen any of these DC movies, so I'm going by really what I've heard from other people. And that's what I've heard. Actually, hearing the fan outcry that they wanted the Snyder cuts of the Superman films makes me want to see it.
Oh, to give you an idea of this, speaking of Boobs of Steel, as a matter of fact, so in the Whedon cut, there's a scene where the Flash falls into Wonder Woman's chest. In the Snyder cut, that's not there. I'm like, I wonder which is the better movie.
Jared, you really need to work on your puns, but I get what you're trying to say.
It's related to the topic.
My point is that, like, for the Wonder Woman movie, everybody has raved about the Wonder Woman movie with Gal Gadot, saying how good it was, that it was true to the spirit of the character, which is really what we all want. And then you go to Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh boy.
What happened there? And again,
they let the woman write it.
Yeah, exactly. It's you no longer have people at the helm who care about the spirit of the characters. You now have somebody who has an agenda, and that's the biggest problem with all of these characters, not just the women but the men as well, is that they're not being written by people who give a damn. I mean, a comic that we have ripped on relentlessly was X-Men Green, because it holds up Nature Girl as this, paragon of morality. Shanks a poor store owner who's just doing his job.
If you mention X-Men Green, I have to play this clip.
Why did you say that name?
That's fair. Come on. I hate to be that guy, but that's fair.
That's and that's the point. And the reason why the first Wonder Woman movie, by the way, do you know who was heavily involved in the script writing of the first Wonder Woman movie? I think his name is Alan Heinberg. He wrote a lot of Wonder Woman comics.
He did in the late Silver Age, early Bronze Age.
Good stuff. That's the thing. Also, good comics. So I'm like, and that's their issue. They thought that, okay, the movie's really popular. Why don't we have the director write the movie?
And of course, she writes it about Wonder Woman's boyfriend coming back
again. And I'm like, what the?
This is all I'm going to say about 84. Allegedly, this was not within the film itself. It was a sub article which was explained after the movie came out. but the guy Steve Trevor possesses had a certain preference and had no consciousness while the body swap was going on. He was actively possessed throughout most of the movie. I'll give you a minute to think about that.
Yeah, she basically pulled a big, but didn't realize that part didn't age well.
Yeah.
Well, see, again, I don't know what it is when we start letting these people write the stories, but you get these people who are uninitiated, don't have any love for actual superhero stories or heroism, and where do they take it? Their selfish desires.
I mean, hell, with Marvel, I wish I was kidding about this. It's considered a red flag if you are to get a job at Marvel Studios if you are a fan of Marvel Comics.
Three factors I want to add to that.
They will not hire you if you know the comics.
3 factors I want to add to that. One,
and yes, that was. I will say this. I'm going to push back against this. She was Wonder Woman. There you go. I am going to say that.
Thank you, Jared. But I will say 3 factors. One, no one's willing to work for peanuts currently in the comic book industry.
True.
I hate to be that guy. It just needs to be said. Second, if you don't know the source material, so you know you can do better, but you're just writing off the bare minimum, pinching to the lowest common denominator. Once the Disney money runs out, what do you do then? License out and cut your losses?
Yes.
And 3,
what you do.
The people you're contracting are hacks.
Yep.
Like there is no quality deficit whatsoever.
If She-Hulk is any indication, that's another character that has been. And I'm glad you guys mentioned the She-Hulk thing in the book.
Yeah, there's
the clip.
She-Hulk near.
That pissed the ever-loving out of me because I'm like, I love She-Hulk. And then when I see they made her like basically Hulk, they dropped the she in her name too and just called her Hulk and had her speak like Hulk. And I'm like, what's the point that made her unique is that she was hot and she spoke normally and she could control it. You took that away and basically made her female Hulk.
Well, as I had mentioned in the book, I get into the whole Jungian thing that with Hulk, with Banner, when he becomes the Hulk, he's unleashing his repressed rage. And John Byrne thought, well, we've already got that character. Why don't we do something different?
Yeah.
Jennifer Walters. How about we have it that, well, she's a pent-up, nerdy woman. She's very tightly wound. She doesn't really have much of a life outside her job. What is repressed in her? Her sexuality. So when she became She-Hulk, what becomes expressed? All that pent-up sexuality and need to have fun. Genius. That was great storytelling. So turning her into just another rage monster is like, oh, okay, so we've now got a discount Hulk.
Because that's what it is. And then the show comes out and I was moderately hopeful. And then the part where they lost me is in the first episode where she's talking about managing her rage. And to Bruce Banner, mind you, who at this point has been hunted by the government and seeing half his friends get dusted, goes, I dealt with my stress infinitely better than you do. And I'm like, you get catcalled, he watched his friends die.
And was hunted by the government.
Kill him multiple times. Well, again, this is a reflection of how utterly selfish and disconnected the women who made that series are. They're so self-centered and so unempathetic that they have no concept that their petty little lives in Hollywood, where they're driving around in their fancy cars and sipping lattes, that somebody outside that, somebody beyond the boundaries of Beverly Hills, actually has a life where they suffer and live.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also going to say flat out with 100% certainty that the I hate being catcalled is said by no woman ever.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first.
Now, you want to fight me on it? I will fight you on that.
Hey, well, what was it? The one feminist for The Guardian kept writing all these articles about how sick of it, how she hated being catcalled. People stopped catcalling her. A year later, she writes an article saying, I hate the fact that I miss being catcalled.
Yeah.
Or it's like when a lot of these feminists complain about that it's hard for them to get dates now. And I'm like, I wonder why.
Like, gee.
But it's like, and my point is that, again, that first Wonder Woman movie, I'm going back to this, was that's the way you have a female comic book character, because what you do is, not once did I feel like as a dude I was being blasted like I did with 1984, which is why it was so jarring, and Captain Marvel, because in those two movies they made guys look like idiots.
Well, here's my one problem with the Wonder Woman movie with Godot. I thought she was too much of a warrior. I mean,
Okay.
she's supposed to be a peacemaker as well as a warrior, and we really didn't get that aspect from her.
We would have had Snyder been able to continue his arc, because that's because what he was building to, his whole universe was getting them to the point where we recognize them, where she's a peacemaker, Superman is the classic hopeful person. It's just Warner Brothers kept saying, no, they have to be this way now. You don't get any build up to that. So that's why I don't necessarily blame Snyder. I blame more Warner Brothers trying to catch up with Marvel on that. But yeah, I can see that, particularly after reading like the George Perez run, where she that. By the way, this is fantastic. By the way, this is quickly becoming my favorite run of Wonder Woman.
Us.
Yeah,
right there. This is the Wonder Woman.
Exactly.
And to be clear, to be fair, Wonder Woman in the comics at the time was more on that warrior side of doing things. So that's the other thing. I'm like, at least it was yeah, but I'm like, at least it was reflecting what the comics were at the time. So I'm like, okay, I can kind of see that.
Well, for me, one of the pinnacle scenes with Wonder Woman that has always stuck with me as this defines her character, or at least was a character defining moment, was before 52, where Superman was being controlled by Max Lord.
Yeah.
And he was being forced to go on these rampages and killing people, and she uses her lariat to ask him how can I stop this, and he's forced to tell the truth, and he says, kill me. So she does, without question. And you could tell she hardens herself to that decision, that she recognizes what that means and takes full and complete responsibility for it, regardless of how it will affect her relationship with others, because it was the right thing to do. And it's that we have lost with her depiction. And I mourn that. So.
I could see that.
I would disagree. I think what we have lost is, they're more than happy to show her as a warrior. They're more than happy to show her punching people and breaking things and swinging a sword, which is half of her character. She's half conqueror.
Mm-hmm.
What we're not getting is that she was a force of love, a being of love.
Yeah.
In her original story, she was born of love. She was the creation of Aphrodite. Mm-hmm. Now, in the reboot, she was
one of many reboots.
Well, the definitive reboot back in the 80s. She was a product of rape, which I wasn't thrilled about, but still that held true to the Greek mythology to some degree. And what we don't have is what Linda Carter had that I have not seen return, which is the Wonder Woman who could walk into a battle and diffuse it with a smile. She could calm someone with just touching their shoulder.
I will say this: the Snyder Cut has that.
Really?
To an extent.
There is a specific scene in this. Do you want me to spoil it, or do you guys just want to go watch it?
We don't even have Netflix, so don't worry about it.
Spoilers are good. So it's okay.
So she saves these people from a terrorist attack, and doing her Wonder Woman stuff, and then this girl is like, this little girl is like shaking because she was just in the middle of a terrorist attack. So Wonder Woman comes over and comforts her, and then the girl asks Wonder Woman, "Can I be like you someday?" And then Wonder Woman smiles and goes, "You can be whatever you want to be." Yeah, that's the thing. I'm like, yeah, that's that's one of the things I love about it, because here's the thing about that cut specifically. It gets the characters to their fundamental core. Yes, it leans more onto the warrior side,
right?
But it allows for those moments that show that she is like a loving, the loving character that we know her to be. And of course,
I just want to add on,
Nick. I know Nick found this scene cringe because he doesn't have taste.
Before we throw slander,
Yeah.
but I just feel like we lose the empathic aspect of Diana and many female characters. Like there's no empathy, there's no kindness, there's no context. It's just fight, rage, go on social media, etc. And I don't know if you guys heard this, but especially with casuals, a lot of casuals believe that Injustice 2 of all versions of Wonder Woman is arguably the most comic accurate. And I'm just like,
Injustice 2 is so what they did with Injustice. So the for those that don't know, somehow the basic premise of Injustice is Superman kills Lois Lane because he's tricked by the Joker, and then he becomes a dictator. What they brought in the second game was that Wonder Woman actually manipulated him behind the scenes, and she was the villain of Injustice. So I'm like, wait a second here.
Is anyone else tired of our heroes being villains?
Yes. At this point, I'm like, stop. Yeah. I'm like, stop. Just. It's really just that is far from Wonder Woman. Yes, exactly.
All I'm gonna say on that is that a subversion of a subversion is just playing it straight.
Right. And their excuse is, oh, it's just Elseworlds. Don't worry about it. It's just Elseworlds.
No, that's not Elseworlds. That's you either living out your own personal fantasy at best, and worse, enjoying tearing apart other people's heroes because screwed. Sorry, I'm trying to clean up.
Everybody gets one.
I'm hyped up. I do apologize.
No, it's okay. I'll give you credit for effort.
Well, one of the things that I mentioned in Boobs of Steel in the chapter on Wonder Woman about her power as a feminine force, was her interaction with the public was that it didn't matter that she's effectively a goddess. Everyone was at ease in her presence. No one was afraid of her. And there was one of the old comics where all the girls are gathered around her saying, oh my God, you're so amazing, Wonder Woman. You're such a, and she goes, don't be silly. You all can be heroes.
Yeah.
It's like, where's that?
Yeah. It's because I think that nowadays when they depict these female characters, and to a certain degree, even the male characters, they see empathy as weakness, and they're not realizing that that's actually, for one thing, that's fundamental to Wonder Woman specifically. But the other thing is like, that actually shows true strength, which gets back to our previous point about how these writers don't have a single idea of what a hero is.
Isn't it curious that the more left-leaning the writers are, the less they understand empathy and altruism?
I have noticed that.
That's an interesting point right there.
The concept of love and self-sacrifice seem to be utterly foreign to them.
And then they try and imprint those on the heroes themselves, and that's why a lot of these stories fall flat, because it's like the majority of people are like, wait, no.
Notice they all want to write the villain. I think that's who they relate to.
Which that's fine. If you can write me a good villain story, have at it. I don't care where you align politically, but the problem is that they can't even do that right.
No.
Well, no, the problem is that they keep wanting to write the villains as the heroes. I mean, look at Cruella.
Oh, God.
You know, she's a puppy killer. It bugs the heck out of me when I point out people, you're supporting a puppy killer. And it does not connect to them. It's like, well, but, you know, she's sympathetic because she just wants to, you know, fit in. I'm like, she's a puppy killer.
She kills yeah.
That's something you can't walk back from.
Yeah, exactly. No. That's always the one line in media where they're like, no, this person's utterly irredeemable. You kill a puppy.
For no reason. For a fashion choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see why they tried to get away with it with Maleficent. I disagree 110% with everything they've done with the character, but I can see why they tried to do it. Cruella's a puppy killer. done. It's like, I don't see, oh, this is going to get me down another rabbit hole, but like, people think I'm weird that I have great respect for Dr. Doom. He's a villain. He is 100% a villain, but I have respect for Dr. Doom because he is honest about who and what he is, unlike Reed Richards. And you can debate me on that if you have thoughts about Reed Richards.
Depends
But
on which thought of. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, to me, Reed Richards, if you had the two men side by side and you said pick the villain, I would pick Reed Richards, not Dr.
To a degree, yeah. To a degree, I would agree, because there are certain times where he acts very villainous.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just felt like throwing everyone into the negatives. Oh, was it the negative zone? Was it? Or
Yeah.
I think so.
Oh, well, no, it's all right. You didn't tell anybody you're doing this. You just decided this.
Well, it's for the betterment of everyone that I just did it.
Yeah.
And that's always the biggest rivalry with Mr. Fantastic and Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom is honest to God about who and what he is, how he's doing the way he's doing it in his innovations. Whereas Franklin Richard has a bit of a superiority complex. He's egotistical. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. Yes, the first family, the Fantastic Four, are there to balance him out. But in a scenario where that family is not well knit, where that dynamic isn't solid, Franklin could easily go off the deep end, and then we get the Maker like in the Ultimates.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a villain arc waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about it,
meanwhile, poor Ben Grimm is just.
I was about to say. I was about to say, I'm like, you have the technology to reverse things, and you're telling me that you don't at least give him the ability to change at will, maybe? You have that technology. You're the second smartest man in the universe, because, of course, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur have to be the smartest. I love when they just haphazardly just create a new character and say, nope, they're the smartest.
Oh,
Jared, I honest to God have no idea.
Wait till you get to the last chapter of Boobs of Steel.
Oh boy, I can't wait.
I talk about the fact that Moon Girl is a complete and utter sociopath, worse than Doom.
Really?
Yes, I get
seriously.
Can
someone explain to me who Moon Girl is? I have no idea who that is.
She is. I know you have images of her.
It's a creation of Bendis's that should have never happened.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Vanilla, what's her face?
Love good. I don't know. There you go.
That's her.
That's her.
I think I saw where Disney was promoting a TV show about that character. I thought it was a goof.
Probably.
It's an animated show. Of course, the minute you said it's a Bendis creation, Jay Heat and I were like, that explains it.
Bendis doesn't have a good track record since Ultimate.
Bendis has some weird fetishization with kids, and I don't really like it.
Or it's like when he tried to make a replacement for Iron Man, but he named it after...
Jared, we agreed to keep this PG.
No, I'm going to say it's after an adult parody of Iron Man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I like to think that was unintentional, but I don't know with these people.
Moon Girl, Ironheart, I think there's one.
Naomi.
What?
Well, Naomi was a tribute character. That's one's a little different.
But here's what he did. When he wrote the Justice League, he put his new character on the Justice League. And I'm like, what?
No, I'm just
after
going to say
Wonder Comics got canned, where was she going to go?
I'm just going to say it. What's his fixation with black little girls?
Because
he seems really stuck on it.
The way he explains is that he wants to give like people for his daughters to look up to, because he does have two, I think, adopted daughters that are black.
I looked up to a robot that turned into a jet.
Yeah. And it's just the thing is, how about you write the actual pre-existing black female characters that everyone actually likes, like Photon. There you go.
Storm.
There you go.
Yeah, Photon. Actually, who's the character that was based on Pam Grier? I always forget what her name is.
Monica Rambeau.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
She was Captain Marvel, as a matter of fact.
For a time, briefly.
For a time. That's what everyone wanted.
There was Static.
Mm-hmm. There was
Static. Yeah, but Disney had a falling out with the McDuffie estate.
Well, is that what it is?
Well, hang on.
Well, good. That means they can't ruin it.
Well, Jay Heat, they have John Stewart Green Lantern. for the longest time, I don't know who the hell Hal Jordan was because I was watching the animated show.
You know, I liked him better than Hal Jordan.
A little bit, yeah.
Going to Comic-Con and seeing the Marines dress as him.
Yeah, but that's my point. It's like you have all these pre-existing characters that are great that don't get the attention they deserve because everyone's like, because to quote Dan Slott on Twitter, he put up, well, we have to make well, we have to make to change all these pre-existing characters because the other ones he basically said the pre-existing characters if we try and make our own characters, they won't stand on their own. And I'm like, well, you're right there, but I love how you're just saying these characters aren't good enough. I think that's vaguely racist.
You know, Chris Claremont made an entire career out of taking D-list characters and making them A-listers.
And I'm going to do a shout out to a couple of indie creators, Adam Withers and Withers and Comfort Love. Their series, God, I'm blanking on the name. The Uniques. Thank you. Yes, it did start off as their own fanfic of Teen Titans. But they took those characters in a completely different direction and made them their own. And, you know, no, if you have good stories, your characters will stand on their own. And that's the thing is if
there's the Rippaverse.
Yeah.
I know.
And before we move forward, I have to bring this up. Please go indie. Do not settle for scraps from the big two.
Do not.
I highly condone going indie. Hashtag please go indie.
Yes, because you know, remember. Sorry, you keep going.
Actually, do something about it. I respect these gentlemen and ladies by actually doing something about it, rather than just bad mouthing on Twitter or X, as it's called now, and not really applying any action. They're actually doing something about it based on their own values and beliefs. That's something you got to respect.
And, you know, I never got around to doing a superhero title myself. Maybe if I find an artist, I will. But you know what? Do you miss when Vertigo Comics was good in the 90s?
Yeah.
You should read Case File Arkham 1 and 2. It's got everything that you liked about Hellblazer.
Yep.
And more.
Yeah, I'll check that out. I'll definitely check that out.
Case File Arkham.
Yeah, it's like even I'm working on a project right now. It's basically my love letter to Wonder Woman and the Justice League. So it's like, and that's the thing. And I started this for the express reason that I don't like the way DC is going right now. So I'm just going to make my own book, basically base it off of DC characters and just say, here's where I want them to go. And there are plenty of books that start off like that and go on to the Rippaverse.
You know, it's a real shame is I actually have a script and a full story concept that was kind of, well, let's take everything that was good about Jeff Johns' Power Girl and give her own book. And it just, I could never secure an artist that was reliable. It was a real shame.
That sounds actually really cool.
I'd be down to see it. Read that, honestly. And before we move forward, and I might even consider the idea myself, but how would you guys feel about world building and establishing your lore starting out? Do you build to that? Do you focus on the characters first? What would your advice be for a writer starting out?
That's an excellent question, Chehi.
Usually the idea starts with the story concept.
Yeah.
The concept itself, be it a character or a story arc or a neat idea. And then once that happens, that informs the world. You start to build on top of that idea. It's like, well, if this exists, then this should exist. And if that exists, well, clearly these things have to exist too. And if that exists, that's how my world building usually goes. And so it's kind of almost like it starts like a pyramid where you start with one idea, but for that idea to exist, other things have to exist. And for that to, by the end of it, you've got a whole world.
There you go. 100%. And I will say again, credit to Nick from the Phoenix Press. Well, when I started the project, he turned to me and he goes, Jared, here's the piece of advice I will tell you. Establish your rules for how your powers work and everything like that first, and then everything else will flow from that.
I'll show you my ultimate world building. I can't say world building for this because this is Case File Arkham is essentially 1940s detective noir in Lovecraft's Arkham. So it's kind of Lovecraft's universe. But I did do World War Kaiju, and the initial idea was one idea. What if the Manhattan Project didn't produce an A-bomb, but produced a giant monster?
Ah, that's cool.
And what if the Cold War was about giant monsters instead of missiles?
Oh wow, that actually is a great idea. Wow.
World War Kaiju, it's right here.
And I remember the long meetings with the artist talking about, well, how much of the real world are we going to put into this? How much of this is going to be, our creation? There was a lot of thought put into it on how exactly this world was going to develop. Right down to the fact that the artist went to the trouble of researching the moon phase when the Enola Gay was in flight to make sure that it was accurate when he drew that for the book.
Dedication.
And the thing is, I actually stuck to reality really close. Mm-hmm. Really, the only things I changed was one, there are no atomic bombs, only atomic monsters, and two, there was a crash at Roswell.
Okay.
Yeah, and I stick to a lot of the alien lore.
Well, again, going to your point, that makes sense because all of a sudden, if we're creating giant kaiju, aliens probably exist. So there you go. That works.
Let's see if I can flip.
And with that said, the art style greatly influenced how the story was told as well, where the art style will change depending on what decade the story is taking place in. So are you showing the
Oh, that is cool. That is nice. I love the colors on that. Wow.
Yeah, the whole thing is painted.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. So it's kind of like an Alex Ross thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it even has kind of a vibe similar to Marvel's.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's about a journalist getting to the truth of what happened and what caused World War III.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's all told in flashbacks.
That is cool. I like that. Well, I know what I have to pick up as soon as we get off of this, because all these ideas, I'm like, I need this. That makes sense. But yeah, that's really cool. And the thing about it, the other thing I always here's my piece of advice, whether or not it's writing a comic, creating content on YouTube. This is the number one thing I always tell people: have passion for what you're doing. That's what's missing from a lot of this other stuff, because that's the way you grow, not only as a creator, but you also, that's what keeps you going in like the really long times, because there are plenty of, there was like a period of a year when my stuff wouldn't get a lot of views. I just kept at it because I like talking about comic books, and the channel just got monetized. You just have to keep pushing, and eventually, and then it all pays off at the end, and write with passion, right? Well, and that's the problem, going back to what we said earlier about modern writers. They see it more as a jumping on point to other medium, whether or not that's like a Netflix deal or like a show like that, as opposed to you're writing a legacy with these characters. And that's like the main issue.
Yeah, one of the things that I kind of go for in the book, Boobs of Steel, what I talk about, is I fully embrace this. No, these are our myths. This is our mythology, and it needs to be treated as such and respected as such. It's not just a funny book for kids. I hate that excuse. Oh, it's just a movie about space wizards for kids. No,
it's not.
No, it has, like Star Wars is the easiest. Star Wars has penetrated our culture. Words and phrases, people don't even need to see the films to know what the Force is. When it's gotten that deep into the language and the cultural zeitgeist, it is more than just a movie.
Yeah, and in fact, my first intro for the show legit was back in the day. They were called Zeus, Apollo, Athena, and blah 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 blah. Now there's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. For some reason, I said Tigra, but the point still aligns 100%. These are the Greek gods of the times, in that that there are mythology. It kind of makes me wonder back then if there were people arguing Zeus wouldn't do that. Where is that? I need a parody of that.
Yeah, they're called priests. But
yeah.
Well, you know, there was I don't know if I mentioned it in this one. Do I mention Akhenaten in
this book? No, Akhenaten's in the next book.
In the next book, I actually talk about how Egypt, for a brief period, had one pharaoh who may have been a hermaphrodite, but definitely had masculinity issues about his, had gender issues. And in his rage and impotence, wiped away the entire mythology, and by fiat said, everyone, you must worship these new gods. God, one new god. All your old myths are gone. You're not allowed. And you know what? It went over just as badly as it's going now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what we're seeing now. That's actually a really good analogy. Wow. It actually works really well because it's very similar. So on that note, Jahit, do you have any final questions or anything?
Yes, just this one. And you brought this up earlier, madam, and how you would say many female creators today have self-esteem issues. And what I want, if you could go into a little more detail about that and how your experience led you to that conclusion.
Certainly. Now, I'm not saying all female creators, because I do know that there are those out there who can tell a story. Yes, I'm being harsh, but unfortunately, a vast majority of the ones that I've come across within the last 5 years have a horrible problem with self-insertion. So they can't tell a story without it basically being their stand-in. Them writing about the problems that they either actually do encounter in their lives, aka I can't get a guy, or aka I have eating problems, and their ideal of how to overcome it, which usually involves absolutely tearing down their enemies, just like you would the high school bully, or everybody suddenly miraculously thinks, wow, you're really cool and I never noticed it before. Can I be your friend? It's usually one of those two things, not always. A beautiful train wreck that I've read is Man Eaters, if you've ever read it.
I'm aware of the title.
That is a beautiful train wreck in which the writer has very real issues with her femininity, where she's very obvious. She sees her own femininity as the enemy. And she's written this story about how young teenage girls become lionesses and kill people. And we're supposed to feel bad that they're being, instead of executed as animals, they're being rounded up and put into camps until they pass that phase of their life. I mean,
you're killing people.
Well, no, they're not.
They're not.
Well, yes, they are.
Well, they are. They are killing people. Yes, that's true. The girls are killing people, but we're supposed to feel bad for them that they're being rounded up instead of executed.
No, the worst. No. The worst stand-in character was Mom.
Oh my God, yes, Mom. You guys read Mom?
No.
I have.
Yeah, you know the pain. You know the pain.
I got I got one.
If
for
you think
guys.
I Am Not Starfire is bad,
I got one that's worse. All right, here we go. So last year, DC did a book called Nubia and the Justice League. Yeah, there you go. They put Nubia on the Justice League. That was fine. I was interested in that. Then I read it. It's literally the Justice League worshiping Nubia to the point where Black Canary does this and goes, "Yes, Queen."
No.
Black Canary. And I'm reading this and I'm like, I need to bleach my eyes.
What got me about Mom, did you read her letter at the end of issue 1?
I did.
Yeah, where she says, I don't hate men. I mean, my brother's male.
That's a strictly family relationship. That has no context in what you're talking about. You love that person unconditionally, regardless.
Yeah.
I love how I could see the pain in Jay Heat's eyes right about now. That's the best part.
No, it's just my brother's male, and there's like an audible pause in reading this where you're waiting for like the applaud and instead you get crickets.
I had to write a book report on Mom in 7th grade.
Man, your teacher sucked.
Don't remind me.
I'm sorry.
Gosh, that is just so. Well, guess what, Jay Heat? I know what I'm making you read for April Fools. So for those of you that don't know, what we do for April Fools is that we assign each other projects that we know that the person hates, and they have to positively review it for 5 minutes. I had Civil War II, where Carol Danvers kills Iron Man. And then I had to review the Whedon cut of Justice League. Yeah, that was like the biggest. That was my cross to bear. Nick had to do Captain Marvel.
I agree with Nick.
Yeah,
I agree with
far.
Nick.
Well, you know what, Jade? How rare is it that I can find something that utterly stumps you?
This does not stump me. That Mom was just an objectively bad book and arguably horrifying for a middle schooler to go through.
The looking at that one panel and it suddenly occurring to you where that prehensile hair is coming from.
And this is a true story. This is a true story. My sister stumbled on this book in the library by complete accident, and she just bawled crying for 3 days. She could not handle the emotional whiplash of going through that book.
I'm sorry.
Ouch. Well, on that positive note, we're gonna wrap it up here. But thank you for coming on, guys. And where can everyone find you?
You can find us at 0, publishing.com and your website.
Oh, Ishiro at glitchwork.com. Or no, it's www.jishiro.com.
Yep.
Or me on Twitter at Ishiro_J.
Same Twitter, 01 Publish at 01 Publishing. If you're on Instagram, it's 01 Publishing Books, BOOB00KS.
And on that note, everyone, hope you've enjoyed this interview. It was a pleasure. We'll have you on again real soon. Stay heroic, everyone, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye-bye.